Ladies and gentlemen, we need to have an uncomfortable conversation about our world champion, Gukesh. You can see on screen, Tata Steel, round 7, 2026, Gukesh Dommaraju, the classical world champion, has lost his game, his round 7 game, to one of his potential challengers, Anish Giri. Anish Giri is in the candidates. He's not having a particularly successful Tata Steel. He's nowhere near the top. It is led before this round and after this round by Nodirbek Abdusattorov. He would have had to lose and someone else had to win. I think he had a point difference after round 6. So he is definitely still one of the leaders, if not the sole leader. But we need to have this conversation about Gukesh. Let's look at this game first. So we have c4 from Gukesh, e5 from Anish, the most confrontational way to play. It's the reverse Sicilian, knight to c3, knight to f6, knight f3, knight to c6. I think I said knight to c6 twice. 4 knights variation of the English so far. g3, d5, takes, knight takes, bishop to g2, bishop to c5, now d3. Short castles, queen b3, knight d7. Look at this move. Queen b3 is a novelty according to my database. It may have been played. I'm sure it's been played, but according to the GM Chess Masters database, it's not been played. If I go to the overall GM Chess database, it has been played. There's 169 games in it by some really random people. But it's just not a move that's played, queen b3. The move in this position that is chosen is short castles or bishop d2. Those are the 2 moves that's played, or taking on d5. Those are the 3 moves that I've got. Queen b3 is weird. Now we get the knight retreating. Short castles, h6. You can see Gukesh still knows what he's doing. a3, knight d4, knight takes d4, e takes d4, and the knight goes to e4. Gukesh has now spent his time. He spent his time mainly on this move, a3, so out of theory for him on move 10. Knight to d4, he now spends 10 minutes taking that knight. E takes d4, obviously blitzes out this in 5 minutes. Bishop to b6, and now queen to c2. And the time situation is level. Anish has done quite well. a5, now bishop d2, a4. Now Gukesh is under time pressure. He's less on time. So we've got bishop to b4. Anish Giri's leveled this position. You can't really tell the evaluation so clearly here on Chess. It's negative 0.3. So he's got a slightly better position according to the engine, and he's more than equalized. We've got rook to e8, knight to c5, bishop takes, bishop takes. You would think that's bad. You've given Gukesh 2 bishops, an open Catalan bishop. He surely has a wondrous position, but it's not so simple. So we get knight to f5. Now bishop to e4, but now rook a6. Rook a6, a beautiful idea. Now e3, looking to trade in the center, which is what we get. The knight is now hit by the rook and the bishop, but I can just play queen g5. And now when you play rook f4, potentially looking to double, I can play b6. And here Gukesh goes for something. 30 minutes on the clock, he's down 12 minutes. He spends a little bit of time and he goes for queen to c4, 2 minutes. The idea is very simple. If bishop takes, he's setting up bishop takes, because then when you take here, you hang your rook. So he's creating a threat on the knight, but the problem is, I can just play rook a7, and it's -1. Anish Giri is better. It's not so simple. Bishop b4, now c5. Now again going for tactical complications. He plays queen b5, which again hits the rook, but it's not the right move. I can just play rook a e7, doubling up. Now I could always sacrifice in the future. Your bishop's still hanging, so you've got to bring it back to d2, and Anish Giri is just better, and he's probably winning. The knight goes to d6, gives away some of his advantage. The best move here is to sack the knight, to take on g3. H takes g3, and now rook takes e4, sacrificing 2 pieces, because if rook takes e4, you lose. Queen takes g3, check, king f1, and now you would get rook e5. Rook e5, threatening to come this way, and if it takes, bishop h3 check is mate in 4. So a serious line. Knight d6, wrong way. You missed the idea to sack, but what he does get is the bishop, and he wins this pawn back that he just gave away. Rook takes, and he's just got a firm initiative. The queen has no real threats, and these two pieces are not doing enough. You've got every pawn you have. Look at Gukesh. He's got every pawn on a dark square and a dark squared bishop. Now, you might say, oh, this bishop's doing a fantastic job defending. It's not doing any job defending. It's got to monitor these as best it can, yes, but you would love a light squared bishop because your light squares are unaccounted for. And guess what I have? A light squared bishop. Anyway, queen to c6. Targets the rook, targets the bishop. I can just play queen g4. Now, queen takes c5. Rook to c4. Your queen is not helpful, and queen d6 is the wrong way. It's already a bad situation here. Queen d5, apparently, is better. Queen d5. Simply because I'm imagining you're on the light squares, you're threatening to go here, and I imagine you keep touch of everything important. So queen d6 is the wrong direction, because now rook c2, you've got rook to c1, bishop f5, rook takes c2, bishop takes c2, and now the king can escape, and there's not too many threats. Queen d6 is wrong, because now queen e4. I'm in on this diagonal. And this is a huge problem for you, because bishop here is going to threaten mates. So king comes up to f2, but I play bishop b7 anyway. And yes, you've got this check, but you've got nothing else. So rook f1, rook c6, check, king h2, you've got nothing. Bishop c3, rook takes c3, b takes c3, queen g2, check, king e1, and now bishop a6. And Gukesh has to resign. 37 moves. If Anish Giri wins the candidates, he's going to like his chances. Gukesh, it's very interesting because people will make a lot of how he struggled. He hasn't performed badly. He is struggling because of the comparison to those that have come before him. He's far better world champion than Ding Liren, with all respect to Ding Liren, who really struggled after that first world championship match against Yanni Pornichi. It took something out of him. Since he came back from the pandemic, he's not been the same. Gukesh has been active. He just hasn't shown the level of dominance that Magnus Carlsen has. I've spoken about this in a video, and I will link it, but it is, it'll be in one of the cards or something. Anyway, we must now go to the leader, Nodirbek Abdusattorov. He won today. To extend his lead, we're going to look at how he did it, because he's just dominating everybody. I may as well turn the result back on, so that I've got access to the analysis. Anyway, so he's playing Vincent Keymer with the black pieces. Another English opening. This one turns into more of like a semi-Slav defense. Knight bd7, queen c2. This is all theory. g4, I promise you, is theory. These players know what they're doing. White goes for an early attack. They give away this. Rook takes. I promise you, this is all theory. The players have spent no time. They know all of this. It looks diabolical to have to try and memorize. But you can somehow get away with all of this. It's very, fascinating stuff as we get this trade. Bishop d2. Rook slides away, and eventually the rook is defended. You can't castle. And bishop a5 is wrong. The players are now out of theory a little bit. White's always in trouble here. They've now lost the right to castle. We trade queens. White's always in trouble just because they've got a lot of stuff exposed. Black has two bishops. I know white does as well. But these bishops guard everything. And just for some reason, it feels like white's overextended and black has got a far calmer position to play. They can castle both sides unless, you stop them. So bishop g4 hits the rook. You're allowed to take here. But I can play f6, rook takes. We sacrifice the rook because this rook's trapped. It was a conscious decision here to go into this line. And Nodirbek Abdusattorov is just better. I don't know if he calculated something that Vincent missed. Vincent's down to 26 minutes, so he obviously missed something. But Nodirbek's just up the exchange. It's just up the exchange, and now he can put his rook on open files, and he'll be completely fine. The bishops don't play as big a part as they could, because the board's not open enough. So Vincent tries to open the board as much as he can, but it's not going to work. We trade off one set of rooks, and yes, I'm creating some weaknesses, but you can never really... Taking pawns is always dangerous, because then there's skewers and things that come with it. You're just not able to defend everything, and king c3 is a desperation, because what you're trying to do is enable this, because when this comes, you can move the bishop away, your bishop's defended, and b2 is defended. But now I can trade off the bishops, and I'm just up a rook versus a bishop, and a rook defeats a bishop in the endgame every single time. And rook h1 just after time control, and Vincent Keymer had to resign. So a really rough turn of events for him, but he wasn't the only one that won. There was a winner in this game, Yagiz Kaan Erdogmus, Arjun Erigaisi. We have c4, another English. It was a day for the English opening. This one, of course, kind of reaches a bit of a transposition. It started as an English, but you'll see in a moment how the structure changes. It's almost kind of like a reverse Benoni of sorts. With the pawn going here, this is over here, we could trade it. This locking everything down. Almost like a reverse Benoni type of structure. With the fianchetted bishop and whatnot. So f3, and the knight gets in here, queen moves out the way, check, and you have to give this up. Already, I would take Yagiz's position. 10 out of 10, if you gave me this position with black, I would be so happy. Why? Light squared bishop with light squared weaknesses. 2 bishops. This pawn, you can struggle to defend it maybe at times, but it is such a great thing. It just limits mobility. This bishop is dead for the time being. The knight has to get out, but you can slam the door on them. It just looks like a wonderful position to have as black. Arjun has got his work cut out for him. So you see we play d4. Now you have to play c5, because the thing is, if I play c5, you're dead. You never break out of this. So you have to play c5, the queen drops back, and now queen to c4, knight out to a6, we take here, allow this exchange, but now I grab this. And look at the tactics that unfold. So we've got bishop takes. Long castles puts pressure on the knight, which is pinned to the bishop. You have to drop here to defend, and now I simply just add more defense. I would rather you take me, quite frankly, because then my knight comes forward from the edge of abyss. You bring your king up. It's level, and Yagiz is now down on time, but he brings his knight in. You're like, wait, hang on. What about this? Well, I trap your rook, so can't do that. It's still level. It's still possible, still playable. According to the engine, it's not as easy, because the idea would be bishop takes a7, knight takes a1, knight a3, king c7, bishop to e3, and now bishop e6, and rook takes a1. It wants this line, and it thinks this is equal. They don't go for that knight b a3. We get rook takes e3. Rook sacrifices for the bishop because the knight comes in, and now I just bring the bishop back. So Yagiz gives up his rook for the bishop, just clean. But he understands the dynamics of the position as he trades rooks and the knight gets out of danger. He understands what he's got for it are 2 bishops and the knight versus 2 knights and the rook. Now, in the previous game, the rook dominated the bishops, but this is not the same endgame. Reason being, firstly, I have a pawn majority on the queen side. You have a pawn majority on the king side, for now. However, how do you get your rook out? Everything hangs. So I'm probably going to be picking up some pawns here. Knight takes a2. I'm now up 2 pawns on the queen side. I now can play b5. Your knight can come in here, and I can play a5. And I can begin marching my pawns down the board. And what happens is this is just a beautiful endgame. Knight d4 is the wrong move. There's a lot of holding moves here. Most of them have to do with the rook, which is silly because you're like, the rook has got to monitor this. It really doesn't. It has to move along this way. Like rook h1, rook h1, rook d1, rook f1, rook e1, all fine. The only other knight move maybe is knight e1 to maybe go, to one of these squares up that way. Here is wrong because I just play bishop to c4. You can play e5, but now I bring the bishop back. You can play g4. This is what you're investing in. This 4 on 3. But the bishops monitor everything. You can't get a breakthrough. Kick the knight out. Bring the king up. Now knight e3. Move the bishop out the way to b3. And f5. This is what you're trying to break through. But I go here. Bishop g5. You move the king out the way. I play bishop f4. And Yagiz Kaan Erdogmus plays a beautiful endgame where he gets this. This is a nightmare to defend. Because what happens is the king comes back, I play bishop d5, and Yagiz Kaan Erdogmus is going to win this game. He is going to defeat Arjun Erigaisi. Rook e1 now is wrong. The only move that you could have tried here is to play g5. This is the only try to save the game, g5. Rook e1 was played, but now king d7. rook e3, a3. King goes to c1, bishop comes to g2, you can give me check, I move out the way, check, I take, you can get in here. It's not enough. I march my pawns down the board, and b2, check, king comes up, h3, and king d3, resignation from Arjun Erigaisi, because simply promotion, it's mate in 10. Let us look at one final game. Local player, Jorden van Foreest. Very happy for him. Aravindh is having a tricky event. It's been a tricky event for the Indian players in this. I do not know what's going on. Pragdananda is struggling a lot. As we mentioned, Gukesh is battling in his own way. He's not, but the worst player in the tournament. But this was such a dynamic game in the King's Indian defense. I've never seen a game quite like it. And Jorden van Foreest just played a very, very nice, beautiful game. Black never really got their attack, and White dominated on every side of the board. Despite having the king at f3 at some point, just dominated on every side of the board. Look at this. Black gets their attack going, but not really. Like, you might say they got an attack going. What did they attack? What did they attack? Look at the advantage. +5 at the end. And Aravindh resigned simply because everything is falling apart. Everything. This white king was never in danger. The most danger it was in was somewhere around here, where it ended up on f3, and the position was +1. Look at this. Move 18 of King's Indian defense, one of the most theoretical openings that have ever been played. Everyone knows the plans. Jorden van Foreest, 1 hour 44 minutes, and his king is on f3. And Aravindh, 1 hour 9. Let's change views. And we're going to look at the standings after round 7. Which look as follows. Okay, this is obviously the end. We go to the standings, Tata Steel website. Nodirbek Abdusattorov, full point advantage over Yagiz Kaan Erdogmus, who drew today. A full 1.5 points ahead of Hans Niemann, Yagiz Kaan Erdogmus, Vladimir Fedoseev, and Jorden van Foreest. Then on equal pegging, 3.5 out of 7, so they could have made 7 draws. They haven't. Matthias Blubom and Vincent Keymer. Then on -1, it is Gukesh, Anish, and Arjun. And then on -2, Tidai van Nguyen and Pragdananda Ramesh Babu. And -3, Aravindh Chithambaram. And that is the 14 players and how everything stands for Tata Steel Masters at the end of round 7. The only person that can catch Nodirbek Abdusattorov is his countryman, and dare we say the world champion, because he won the World Cup, Yagiz Kaan Erdogmus.